Welcome into Moving the Chains, brought to you by Founders Federal Credit Union. I'm Kevin Thomas alongside Jerel Hendricks. We've got a great interview today, a recurring guest, very special guest, head coach Chad Wilkes of the Oceanside Collegiate Landsharks. Coach, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are y'all?
Doing well. Appreciate your time as always. If you guys are just checking us out, check us out on Facebook, Twitter /X, Instagram, YouTube, etc. at Movin Chains, MOVINCHAINS, movinchains.com. There's our website and our podcast on Apple, Spotify, Google, and more. Coach Wilkes is in his second season as the head coach of the Oceanside Collegiate Landsharks. Coach, for people who may not have seen our interview with you last year, can you give the folks a little bit of background of how you got into coaching and how you got to where you are now with Oceanside?
So it's my third head coaching job. My first head coaching job was at a school that doesn't even exist now, in C. Murray, combining with Kingstree, which I was pretty sad about. But I was there for 2 years. Was super, super fortunate to even get that job. I think I was hired at 24 and coached my first season at 25 and was the athletic director too. It was a lot, but I definitely paid my dues doing that too. But I was there for 2 years and then got to go to Lamar, which was a step up for me in a lot of ways. And was there for 3 years, and now I'm at Oceanside. Before that, I was an assistant coach at Sumter High, which has been cool to get to play them the last couple of years here at Oceanside again. Coach Barnes is definitely one of my main mentors in my career. And then before that, I was an assistant at Jerel, where I'm from.
Coach Wilkes, before we jump into this year's team, this edition of the Landsharks, can you reflect on last season and that remarkable run to the state title game?
Yeah, I've had so many people, talk about last year and from that time and how great it was, and a lot of people like just within the school and everybody talks about that, and obviously there's a lot to be happy about, and it was definitely my most fun year coaching. There's a lot of times you get to the end of the year, even in good years we've had in the past, and it is almost like, there's 1% of you that's got a little bit of relief when the season's over because, it's a lot. You're in the foxhole in the grind every day. Last year was really the first year of my career where it was like there was 0% of me that wanted the season to be over. Like whether we won or lost, like I wanted to go to practice again the next day. Just because, and that says a lot about the kids and the community that we have. But ultimately, we didn't get what we wanted. We did something for the first time in school history, and that's great. And don't get me wrong, I definitely look back on the good things that we did, and it's great. But it's deep down, that's not really. I don't consider it super remarkable. So, and that's just what it is.
So, Coach, looking at this year's team, you're off to a good start. So, I think 5-2 right now. What are kind of your styles on both sides of the ball for people who haven't seen you guys play?
Yeah, we're very different to last year. Last year we had a really big, experienced offensive line. With a lot of good players. One of them just played at Georgia and is probably going to be starting at Florida, starting against Florida in a couple weeks. So, that helps, right? So, and then it's crazy. It's crazy. Think about this. We had a guy at left tackle who is the third tackle at Georgia. So with Truss going down, he's going to start against Florida more than likely. As a true freshman, our running back started his first game at Liberty and started for 3 games until he broke his collarbone. Another guard that we had is playing defensive line at North Greenville right now as a true freshman. And then the one of the juniors we had is going to West Point as a defensive lineman. Like we were just really big and experienced and had a great running back. So we ran the ball a ton. Didn't throw the ball nearly as much as we're throwing it this year. We're getting pretty close. We'll have more passing yards this year by the end of the regular season than we finished with last year. We probably have like half as many rushing yards. So we throw the ball a whole lot more. The strength of our team is more of our receivers than the running back room like it was last year. But defensively, we're the same type of team. We're attacking, pretty physical. That's definitely what we hang our hat on, whether we are physical or not. We coach it to be physical. So pretty similar, but this year our defense has been unbelievable. We practice against those guys every day, and they do a really, really good job. And the biggest thing as a team, we're much younger than we were last year, like significantly younger. We've had freshmen get some carries in the backfield. We've had a ton of sophomores play. We really only have 7 seniors that get any playing time, and really only 5 of those start. So a very young team, which is exciting for the future for sure.
So we got Vaughn, we got Monroe. We got Ben that you shouted out. Who's the guy at North
Timmy
Greenville that we
Castine.
listed?
Timmy Castine.
That's
North Greenville now. Yeah,
that's
good
awesome.
group.
I want to give those guys.
And then we had Zach
guys
Hagan on PWO'd at Old Dominion, and unfortunately he tore his ACL in the preseason, but he was tracking to get some time, maybe as special teams or something as a true freshman too, as a preferred walk-on. It's pretty incredible. It's a good group.
Like I mentioned, Coach, we like catching up with you. You know, it's our second time having you on the show, giving some shine to the coaches, but we got to go talk about the players now. Who are some special guys on this year's team, you know, that are having great seasons for you?
Yeah, well, we just talked about Ben Britton. He's unbelievable. He is the one guy. We pretty much have 21 starters, but we don't have 22 because he starts both ways and he plays every play of every game. He has for 2 years, never comes off the field. You know, he's the heartbeat of our team for sure. We go as he goes, with even off the field, his energy and leadership and what he does in the weight room and in the meeting room. It's incredible. You know, he's a kid that's going to West Point over a lot of other programs. You know, a lot of kids go to service academies because that's the best football program they have, that offer they have. But he has Liberty and James Madison, these great group of 5 programs, and he's choosing to go to West Point. And that says a lot about a kid. He's certainly not the only one, but any kid that chooses to do something like that, you know, says a lot about them. And that's the kind of players that those programs have. You know, so he's 100% the heartbeat of our team. Our whole defense is really, really good. Somebody's asked me, like, who's our great players on defense? They're all really good. Our middle linebacker, Miles Robinson, is really good. He was an all-state player at Walkmall last year and moved here, and he's unbelievable. I mean, he's as good a linebacker as I think I've ever coached. He's really, really special. And then he's going to go play college football and make somebody really happy next year. He's awesome. We got another kid, Max Mormon. We moved him from linebacker to defensive end this year. He's going to be a Division I type player. And then we have a sophomore, Mike Jones, who plays defensive line, who's already got a Citadel offer, right after his freshman year. So he's the guy that's going to be an FCS Group of 5 kid going forward, and he's already a really, really good player. And as we get to crunch time, he'll play more on the offensive side of the ball for sure. And then on offense, our quarterback, Edward Reidenbach, took us to a state championship. Didn't start off the year as good as he wanted to, as good as we wanted him to. He was playing against a lot of really, really good defenses. You know, that South Florence defense is as good a defense as I've probably ever played against as a coach. You know, so they've made a lot of people struggle. You know, and he's breaking in with a lot of new offensive linemen, a completely brand new skill position group, all new receivers, new running backs. So they're really starting to gel now. Like I said, we're on track to have more passing yards and passing touchdowns and things like that than we did last year. And we've leaned into that some, and he's continued to improve. But again, he's a great leader, and he's steady, and he runs the ball. He's our leading rusher this year too. So he does a great job. And then Will Virgilio is on pace to have a really good year. I think he's over 500 receiving yards, which isn't something that's super common with me. I do like to run the ball. You know, so he's had a special year, and he's had a couple punt return touchdowns and stuff like that too. So he's a dynamic playmaker as a junior. You know, a lot of these guys are pretty young. We just don't have that many seniors that play.
Well, Coach, like we said, you're off to a great start. You're kind of in the middle of region play right now. How pleased are you with where your team's at, and you know, compared to where you want them to be here a couple weeks down the road?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not happy. We got to get a whole lot better. We're young, but it's something we expected. I told anybody that asked, it wasn't going to be like last year. I really do think that our, whatever you want to call it, 1 to 25 on the roster is more talented than last year. I really do. But the top 5, of course, isn't. The top 5 last year was definitely more talented than this year because, I mean, they're Division I football players playing as freshmen. So, but the depth that we have, I mean, last year we had all of those guys had to go both ways. They started at, you know, we had, I don't know, maybe 11, 12, 13 total starters. Like everybody was going both ways. And this year, only one person has to go both ways. So we have much more depth and good depth, like real depth that we can actually put in the game and rotate in. And we've had to play a bunch of different offensive line combinations, which last year would have really, really hurt us. Unfortunately, one of our senior captains, Finn Johnson, who's another really good player, he's a returning 3-year starter. He broke his leg against South Florence and is pretty much out for the year. And so that's called, like, if that would have happened last year, as good as our offensive line was, there really wasn't like another guy that would have been great for us. That would have really hurt us. Whereas this year we were able to plug and play and still beat Carolina Forest and be competitive against Sumter. And I don't think that would have happened last year. But we knew going into the year it was going to take longer. It's younger kids. I mean, it really is crazy how many junior, sophomores, and freshmen we have playing now. So we knew it was going to take longer to gel. And so I'm not happy. But last year I think we peaked whenever we beat Sumter, whatever, September 19th or something, and we peaked and we were never that good again. So this year we made a very concerted effort to try to keep climbing the mountain all the way to the top of the year, to the end of the year this year. And so hopefully if we get back to where we were last year, we'll be able to perform a little bit better.
Coach, we're winding down the season, but I want to talk about your schedule a little bit. We mentioned it earlier. Your non-region is tough, man. You had South Florence, Sumter, Carolina Forest, Marlboro County, and Louisville. But as you've gotten into region play, it's kind of, slacked off a little bit because you don't really have those high-profile, programs in your area. Does this help or hurt your team as you prepare for that playoff run?
We're trying to keep it from hurting. It doesn't help, but it's just like anything. It's all about how you take it. We do things, we tried to learn from last year and try to do some things differently that we didn't do last year and that our depth allows us to do. For example, we didn't in non-conference, but now that we're in the region schedule, we do ones versus ones at practice, which we would never do outside of spring and maybe a little bit in the preseason. I've never done that before. Once you actually get into the season, we do it every day now. Because it gives us a chance to get good work. And that's something that we learned from last year, and something, again, our depth allows. So you try to learn from last year. I do think it hurt us last year. There's 16-year-old kids, and in our cases, some of them 14, anywhere from 14 to 17, 18, whatever. And so, like, I think back to how I was as a player, and I 100%, no matter what my coaches told us, I 100% thought going into some games that we were going to kill other teams. Like,
yeah,
like
sure.
it didn't. And I actually tell our kids, like, I'm really big, and I've always done this. I'm really big on, like, I never wanted my coaches to lie to me or try to cover stuff up. Like, I'll tell our kids exactly what I think about the opponent coming up, good or bad, where I think if they're better than us, if they're even with us, if they're worse than us. I tell our kids because that sets what the expectation is. The expectation isn't about who we're playing, it's about what we do. And so we try to harp on that a lot, but it's really hard to get 16-year-old kids to keep that same level of focus and energy when they know that they're going to, and the reality is what the reality is. They know they're going to go into some of these games and be heavy favorites, and can probably win not playing as well. So for us, it's about being super focused in practice as coaches, and making sure that we don't let that level drop. And we've made a very, very concerted effort from last year to do that. It's also helped this year that, again, I don't think we've played nearly as good as we did last year. So it's easy. Like, I can put on the film and show them that they haven't done good enough.
Sure.
And so that helps, keep it together. Whereas last year, we beat Sumter 28-0. Coming off of that, it's hard to say we were real bad at a lot of stuff. This year, I put on the tape of us losing to Sumter and say we obviously can do this better, and that's definitely helped.
Coach, talking about your region, though, I think week 10 you will have the region title on the line against Timberland. What have you seen from the Wolves on film so far this year? What do you think of that program?
100% better than they were last year, no question about it. Which I didn't know really a ton about, like, the roster and who they had leaving and coming back. I know they had the really good linebacker who played some running back last year. Can't remember his name.
Jenkins, I think.
Jenkins,
right?
Yeah. So I knew they were losing him, but I didn't know a ton about the makeup of their roster. But we've gotten a couple of crossover tapes, like with region now, and I think they're 100% better than they were last year. Even last year, and it's Timberland, so they're always going to be athletic and they're always going to play hard. Like, you can probably until Timberland shuts down or they stop playing football someday, Timberland's going to have athletes and they're going to play hard. And they were beating us last year at halftime 12-6. Now we ended up coming back and scoring a bunch unanswered in the second half and kind of winning a little bit going away. But again, I don't think they're playing better than they were at this time last year. We're playing worse. So if we were only 30 points better than them last year, that gap has certainly closed to where we are now. And so I'm looking forward to it. I definitely think it's far, far from a walkover this year. Ton of athletes. They've got a lot of speed at receiver, which again, I think they had last year. But it just seems like, and again, I haven't been studying them specifically, but it just seems anecdotally like they're getting the ball to those guys deeper down the field more than they did last year. Last year, I remember, watching tape, especially in preparation for them, and it was a ton of run game and some play action off of that. And this year, I feel like it's kind of the opposite. I've seen a lot more pure drop back game and play actioning, but not as much just line up and run it right at you like I felt like it was last year. So yeah, it says I'm expecting a really good game. And that's going to be great for us in the playoffs because the teams that we play in the playoffs are going to be super athletic, if nothing else. So it's going to be great preparation for that for sure.
Coach, I want to backtrack a little bit. You keep talking about, your experience, what you've learned as a coach, because you're still a young coach, young guy, even though you've attained this high level of success at multiple programs. But I want to talk about your staff a little bit. Did you keep the same staff from last year? Have you guys been able to grow together? But what's kind of the dynamics there with your staff?
Yeah, kind of, I guess, mostly new. More than half of them are new. So we are super fortunate. We're super fortunate last year with what we had. But last year we had co-defense coordinators. One of them is Dave Salazzo, he's our defensive line coach, defensive front. Coached at the Citadel for 10 years, was Georgia Tech's D-line coach for a couple years with George O'Leary, and then went with Ralph Friedgen to Maryland and was his D-line coach and recruiting coordinator for that run where Friedgen was at Maryland, where they won the ACC championship and went to an Orange Bowl and had all the Under Armour commercials and stuff, and he's featured in one of them, and our kids love talking to him about that, like all the click-clack stuff from back in the day. But so he was there during that run, and then I actually played against him. When I was at UNH, he was the defensive line coach at Villanova, and we played each other in a CAA matchup.
Nice.
And so I pick at him all the time because we won, and I played poorly, but we did win. I probably played my worst game, but we won, and so I pick on him all the time about that. And so yeah, so we've got him. I mean, you can't recreate that kind of experience in high school football, and I've certainly never been around someone who knows more about even front defensive line play than that man. I mean, he knows it inside out. Probably talks about it in his sleep. I mean, and that's he hones in on that. But last year, our other co-defensive coordinator who controlled the back end was Justin McIntyre, who left to go be a GA at Rice, which is a great opportunity for him. Division I GA, and he's young. I mean, he was a first year out of college. Kind of saw what he could do in the spring, and really wasn't anticipating necessarily him having that role for us last year. But he did such a good job early that we gave it. But he's young. He's only 24, 25. And so him going and getting to do that's a great opportunity. So we were able to replace him with Brent LaPrade, who, everybody knows the LaPrade name, of course, is Steve's son. And he was the defensive coordinator at Fort D for, 9 years, I guess, through the run, including the state championship, and then was the offense coordinator the last 3. Steve needed more help on offense, so flipped him over, and he was the offense coordinator. But we were able to hire him to replace and to call the defense and control the back end, and he's been awesome for us. And then our offensive line coach was Antoine Robbins. He actually left. He's a former Gamecock, was a team captain at South Carolina. Coached at Coastal for 10 years, another, great coach. He left to go start Atlantic charter school in Horry County. So we had to replace him, and we were able to replace him with John Patterson, who, again, is a name that a lot of people around here know. Coached at the Citadel, coached at Lenore Ryan, but he was also the head coach at Providence Day in the 90s and was the head coach at James Island in the mid-2000s, in between a couple of his college stops. So, again, we had a couple guys leave, but we were really able to replace them with some really good guys. We had to replace a wide receivers coach who we replaced with Dr. Mark Hartman, who's Sam Hartman's dad, who was here before when Sam played here. But he's with us every single day at practice, but he's had to miss, I think, 2 or 3 games because he's having to fly out to wherever to watch Sam play. But it's great having him on staff, and then he cares a ton and gives a lot. So we've had a couple movement or a little bit of movement on the coach staff, but we were able to replace them with great people. And again, the fun that I have coaching is certainly higher than it has been anywhere else I've been. And it's not just because of coaching or whatever, but they definitely make it stress-free. I don't have to worry. I worry about what I worry about, which is coordinate the offense, and then all the other crap that comes outside of that I actually spend more time on. But they allow me to focus on that. I know that those spots are going to be taken care of.
So, Coach, talking about some of that other stuff you have to deal with, Oceanside Collegiate is a charter school, and obviously they have been all in the news in South Carolina this year. Charters have, and really it feels like it's more focused towards Gray Collegiate and some of those guys instead of you guys. But, Gray's situation, every team's forfeit against them, having to find games now and whatnot in the Midlands. What do you think about, what's going on there? Teams just refusing to play. Like, I guess, what are your overall thoughts on the whole situation?
So one, I think I have a pretty unique perspective because not only have I been the head coach in just a regular traditional public school, but I mean, I really do believe if it wasn't for the reclassification that put a couple of the private schools down, mainly Southside Christian in 1A, I'd be sitting here with at least one state championship right now. In 20, we were winning 6-3 deep into the second half on the road at Southside Christian, and ended up they hit a pass down the seam and ended up that put them up 10-6 in the fourth quarter, and then they tacked on another one late. But they went on to the state championship and beat Lakeview by like 30 or 40 or whatever. So I really do feel like we were in a good spot there and almost had them. So I feel like, and then they came down and killed us the next year in the upper state championship game. But I have a very unique perspective and also while at Lamar, I played Gray in the regular season too, and lost on a 2-point conversion attempt at the end. So I feel like, and now obviously coaching here, I feel like I have more perspective or a better perspective than anybody because I've been on the side where it has very, very much cost me. And I can tell y'all this too, literally the day that the realignment happened, I guess 19 going into 20, it happened like December 15th is usually when it comes out. And we had like our faculty and staff Christmas party that afternoon. And our AD walks in and tells me what the reclassification is. And obviously I knew because Southside that year, Abbeville had won the 2A state championship. Southside Christian had beat them in the regular season and then lost to them in the playoffs. And so I knew how good Southside Christian was. So, and our AD came in and told me that Southside Christian had gotten moved down. And I remember like calling my dad that night and being like, well, I think it's going to be hard. It just got a whole lot harder. Yeah. So I've been there where it's caused a lot of pain and has definitely been a barrier to our success at Lamar without a doubt. But the thing is I completely understand everyone who even complains about it maybe and feels negatively about anything, I'm not even saying charter schools and private schools. I bet that there's a few schools throughout time that is probably pretty frustrated with Dutch Fork and is probably I would guess. But these things, and I get, and I've got coaching friends who I've talked to who are in regions and districts with charter schools. And we have these conversations and I tell them, look, I get that you would even complain about it or whatever, that it's not ideal for your setup all the time. But the flip side of that is it's always been that way and it's always going to be that way. Now I feel like people just have something that they can put a name on it, and actually charter schools, private, and actually a lot of people don't even realize that the charter schools aren't private schools. We are public schools. We don't get to pick our students. We are literally by law, like we would like our principal and everybody, they'd all go to jail if they pick their students. Like literally, it's a state law that we are a public school just like everybody else. If you apply to come to Oceanside, you have the exact same opportunity to get in as any single other student, whether you play any sport or don't play any other sport. And like the numbers about how high our actual athletic population is in the school are way off. And so a lot of people don't understand the facts. But even with that, I 100% get complaining about it. When I was at Lamar, I 100% was like, if Southside Christian didn't exist, my life would be better. 100%. I'd have a state championship. Or would have had a better shot at a state championship. That's great. But now I'm at a charter school and I'm in 2A. If Abbeville didn't exist, opportunity to win a state championship would be way better.
Yeah.
So it doesn't, that's my whole thing with everybody. When I was in high school, we lost to Bishop England in the lower state playoffs in baseball twice. Nobody forfeited. No, we went down and played them. And when we were on the bus coming back, we wished that Bishop England didn't exist, but it does, and it's existed forever. And so that's my whole thing, is that whatever you want to complain about, and it is all competition based, it's all things that you can apply to other schools and to things that have gone on forever. Whatever it is. And again, I'll always say, Dillon's run the last 10 years and Abbeville's run the last 14 years and Dutch Fork's run, and all this is, the charter schools have won one football state championship. So that's the one sport I'll talk about. They won one, and they've only been to two in a few years. And Abbeville's been to a lot. So that's my feeling on it. Get the complaining. But obviously, and again, the forfeiting, I played great in the non-region regular season where we sure could have forfeited, they'd had to fire me. If my superintendent would have came to me and told me that we're forfeiting that game against Gray when I was at Lamar, they'd have had to fire me. And that's just how that's how I feel about it. So, and you do have a lot of schools like Coach Boulware in Louisville, and I don't think this is an accident, right? So you've got a guy who's in 1A, who's trying to build a program, calls me and is reaching out to Oceanside to play, all right, because he wants his program to be at a certain level. And that goes along with, I think they scrimmage Dorman and Spartanburg and all these teams, right? So he wants to do a certain thing, and all he cares about is the competition, which is, I align more with that. That's the part that I care about. So that's my, and again, being on both sides, that's counting everybody thinking all these myths out there that are true, that aren't true. They're not. They're not. So it is what it is. You can look at a lot of schools around the state, and whatever they think that they're accusing. And I'll say Oceanside. I won't even speak to Gray. If anybody, whatever anybody's saying about Oceanside, it's been going on forever everywhere. Oceanside wins a ton of girls soccer state championships. Wando wins a ton of girls soccer state championships in 5A. Like, it is what it is.
Coach, we appreciate you explaining that. You put it well. Didn't have to, so we really appreciate you tackling that. We've had Coach Holmes on a few times, and he's done the same thing, just explained his perspective, so we do appreciate that.
Take your financial game to the next level with Founders Federal Credit Union. Reach your full potential. Relax. Join Founders today. Visit an office near you or relaxjoinfounders.com to apply. Federally insured by NCUA, member qualification required.
Let's shift gears a little bit. We're going to go to some easier questions, get you off the hot seat a little bit. Pre-game, you're riding to whatever stadium, or you guys are playing a home game. What's on the pre-game playlist? What are you listening to getting ready for the game?
I've got a new move this year, which is movies. I've stopped listening to music. Yeah. Okay. So before we leave, because typically our away trips, because we're in Charleston and where we got to go, I mean, like, you might put on your GPS and figure out how long it's going to take to get to Lake Marion, like in the morning, and it might say 45 minutes, but Friday afternoon, it actually took 2 hours. So basically there's nowhere that we can go that's not going to be an hour and a half. So there's always enough time for a movie. So it's completely new for me. I take my iPad, and before we leave, and I don't even decide until right before we leave, after we've done everything, and I'll download a couple of movies to choose from my iPad. And so there's a lot of movies that came out a while ago that I wanted to catch up on, might have came out 10 years ago, that I've been trying to catch up on this year. The Imitation Game was one. The Prestige was another one that is an old school movie, or a little bit older. I did watch the new Air movie about Michael Jordan this year, which was fantastic, by the way.
Great movie.
I was better than I thought it was going to be. It was unbelievable. So that's my new move. Before that, it would have been essentially just a rotation between Biggie, Tupac, and Guns N' Roses. Those three.
I love it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, Coach, we mentioned you guys played for state last year at Benedict. This year, the titles have been moved to South Carolina State. Do you like it being there at SC State? Would you rather go back to Benedict, maybe go to Williams-Brice? What would you prefer as a coach?
I don't know. I guess I haven't thought about it a ton as a coach. I think typically, most coaches, I think, kind of have the same mindset of, if you get there, you're happy, which
wherever it is, right?
Yeah, right. And I think I generally, like, I really don't care, if you're in the game as a coach, but I do know as a player and getting to play in 2 state championship games at Williams-Brice, like, I get the whole thing of a smaller atmosphere. It does make it feel more closed and all that kind of stuff, but it did mean a lot to me as a kid, going and playing in Williams-Brice, and I think it did to everybody. And so, I kind of miss that for the players. That's something that you get to say, whether you're going to play. I've got a cousin who didn't go on to play college football or do anything else, who played at Lakeview and played in a state championship game in Williams-Brice back in 2001, I think. And that's something that he still gets to talk about. That was his last football game he got to play in that kind of environment. So I guess I would always prefer that, just because I do think it's a special experience for the kids. But when I was an AD, we had a couple of meetings where they, came in and talked about all these different options and stuff. And to be honest with you, I was a 1A AD, and 1A doesn't get as many votes as everybody else. So I don't even know if they cared about what we thought. But I just remember, like, not really ever getting a great reason why we couldn't do Williams-Brice or Clemson again. I know it to a degree it comes down to money, but I do think there were some options at times for us, and I don't know what it is now. That would have been like in 2017 or 2018. But I remember sitting in those meetings thinking, like, I really do feel like if we wanted to make this happen, we could. But as a coach, I guess I don't care. I know when I was in high school at Jerel, our big rival was Chesterfield, and they were dominant. They won 3 straight state championships from my sophomore to senior year, but they were in 1A. So they had to go play in SC State every year while we were going to Williams-Brice. And I kind of, to be honest with you, actively remember, like, I'm really glad we get to play at Williams-Brice while they go play at SC State. So, but as a coach, I've always felt, if we're in the game, I really don't care where they play it. I'll be happy.
Last time you joined us, it was on the phone. You're in your car, fresh off the practice field. I look at the background today. You got settled into the place, looking good.
Box is right behind you. I put it up there.
So
just gonna leave it out. We're close enough now.
So say that you're settled in there. We ask all the coaches, we're foodies. We need to know some restaurants. Where are your spots down there in the Charleston area?
My God. I mean, Charleston it's insane. And I do, like, we always go, me and my wife, we've kind of picked like a different city to go every year during the July 4th dead week period. It's like the one time that we kind of know we're going to have off every year. And I tell people we've been to all these different cities, whatever. And I tell people all the time, it's like, I go to eat. Like, that's like, I went to Chicago to eat. We go to Boston, I go to Boston to eat. I'm going to New York to eat. We went to Montreal to eat. So being in Charleston is really, really nice. I'd say the number one go-to, and there's a couple reasons for it. And the first reason that there's 3 locations. So whether you're downtown, you can go. Whether you're on IOP or Sullivan's, you can go. And then whether there's one literally like 0.2 of a mile from Oceanside, and here in North Mount Pleasant, and that's Home Team Barbecue. You can get the barbecue and you can get the wings, and they're both phenomenal. The ribs are phenomenal there. So that's kind of I think me and my wife probably eat there more than anywhere else, because the amount of locations and how good it is. They actually sponsored our coaches meetings last year, so they hooked us up every Sunday afternoon. So that's definitely a main go-to. The other one is Lewis's Barbecue that I like a lot, and the specific thing about that is the brisket there, I think, is better than Home Team. So I go there to get the brisket sandwich if I just want regular pulled pork or whatever. I think Home Team is better, and obviously Home Team has the wings too. So so a big barbecue guy. And then there's an Italian restaurant here in Mount Pleasant that's called Casa de Palzo or something. It means like crazy house or something. I like a lot too. It's just really, really good.
Hey, you're speaking my language of the barbecue.
I mean, my God, I'm leaving them. I mean, we've been here for a year and a half, or a little over a year and a half, and there's still so many that are on our list and then there's also the fine dining like Pugin's Porch we've been to. That's also, there's a ton. There's everything here. It's unbelievable.
Well, last one for you, Coach. Last year, you guys, lower state champs, made it all the way to the title game. What will it take to get back to that position this year? And you think this team's, poised to make a deep run in the playoffs?
For us, it's pretty simple. We've got to be able to run the ball better than what we have been. I think we do a lot of trying to self-scout during the year to see where we're at, and that's really where we're lacking in a lot of efficiency. I think our defensive efficiency type numbers that I think you can really go off are all better than last year, for the most part, like game to game anyway. But for us, the one clear thing that it's like, what if you want to compare to last year, which again, we weren't good enough last year either, was our run game efficiency wasn't as good. But we've done a lot to try to improve that, and even schematically and all that kind of stuff, but just the way we practice and stuff to try to give our guys a chance. Because again, they're younger. It's not, I think I can't wait for what our offensive line is going to look like in the future. They're all really, really young. So that's great. One senior starter, which is Ben. The other four are all coming back. So that's great. I'm sorry, with two. Yeah, we do have two. Our right guard is also a senior. But we've got a ton of talent that's young up front. So we're trying to do more in practice to make sure we put an emphasis and a focus on being able to run the ball better. And I do think that's really what it's going to come down to, and not just getting necessarily more yards play to play, but really being more physical up front and being able to come off the ball and dominate teams and really set the tone, because I do think we do that on defense, and we haven't been able to do that on offense. Here in spurts, we got the ball on the 1 yard line against Carolina Forest and went 99 yards in 9 minutes to beat a really, really good Carolina Forest team. And that was mostly done on the ground when they knew we were going to run it, and we went and got it. So that we've shown that we can do it. But anytime you're a younger team, that consistency is what's been lacking, and we got to get better at that. And I think that's the number one thing, and it's very easy to be able to look at it, and it's very clear in a lot of other areas that we've got better at since last year. That's the one that we've got to definitely improve. And again, we can't just be as good as we were last year. We have to be better. Last year we lost, and we're really never in the game. So definitely got to get better at that.
Well, this has been great. I want everyone to go check out Coach Wilkes and Landsharks program on social media. They do a great job on Facebook and Twitter, posting updates about the program and highlights on the kids, stuff like that. So definitely give them a follow. Like I mentioned, check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, etc. at Movin Chains, website movingchains.com, podcast on Apple, Spotify, Google, and more. Moving the Chains, brought to you by Founders Federal Credit Union. Jerel, anything else for Coach? We'll let him go today.
Coach, thank you so much for joining us as always. We really appreciate your time. We know you got a lot going on this time in the season as you prepare, for region championship playoffs and things like that. So we appreciate that. We'll definitely have to talk a little bit off air about some food stuff. So looking forward to that once we wrap this up. But just thanks for everything, and stay healthy. You guys keep balling. Love it.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. Thanks,
Coach. We appreciate it. Look forward to catching you here on the stretch run. Best luck the rest of the way. All right.
Thank you. I appreciate it.